Good afternoon, everyone. Very warm welcome to all of you. Very happy to see all of you over here. Hope you are having a good week. It's New Year, and I feel like I am seeing new names. Happy New Year, Sapna. Happy New Year, Bharat. We are glad to have you too, Sapna. All right, so it's 3 o'clock. We will start with our today's webinar. So once again, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and wishing you all a very happy new year to you and your family members. And very warm welcome on the very first session of the year 2020-21. So let's talk about this today's webinar. When you think all about all the investment you have made in your business, from cutting edge tools and technology to these state of the art facilities, have you stopped to consider your employees, arguably the most important investment of all? Of course, it's not enough to simply offer training programs. You need to ensure that the organization embodies the right core set of values necessary to accomplish your business goals. Taken together, that set of values and behavior is what defines your company culture. How can you redefine your culture to match your business goals? Let's hear it from our experts today. HRAI welcomes you all to the Connecting the Dot series on the topic Redesigning Organizational Culture. To know more about HRAI and its events, I would request all the participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. It would be great to have your feedback as well on this session. For the same, we will be running a poll before Q&A session. So I request all the participants to kindly give your valuable feedback. I now take privilege to introduce our esteemed speakers for today's webinar, Mr. Vijay Rane, Vice President HR and Vice President HR at eInfochip, an Aero company. He has excelled as a HR practitioner with over 20 years experience in industries spanning various sectors such as IT, manufacturing, energy, and KPO. He has been instrumental in designing global processes and aligning HR programs with business strategy to drive business results. He has handled responsibilities for large and diverse workflows, directing change management, restructuring businesses, assessing and top grading talent. A black belt in Six Sigma, lead auditor for TS 16949, Vijay has pioneered process redesign and streamlined large number of HR and business processes to add value to the organization. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Our next speaker, Ms. Kankana Berua, Group CHRO, Healthium MedTech. Ms. Kankana comes with 20 years of immense experience in leading HR functions. She currently associated with Healthium since 2019 as a Group CHRO and is responsible for the transformation and integration of group companies. An enterprising professional with a background in human resources, Kankana is a great coach and mentor and is focused on creating platforms for employees to operate at their full capacity. Kankana's previous experiences include being Chief People Officer at Telesolutions Private Limited, Senior Vice President and Group Head Human Resource at Jubilant Drug Discovery and Development Services. She has completed her company secretary course from ICSI and is the first women company secretary from Northeast India. In addition, she is also a law graduate and holds PGDHRM degree from Pondicherry University. You can also follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Our next panel member is Mr. Vinay Trivedi, Head HR, Tontech. He comes with over 13 years of experience in the field of talent management, talent engagement, and talent acquisition across IT, ITES, banking, insurance, and fintech sector. Experienced in managing entire gamut of HR, creating smart acquisition strategy, creating people engagement journey, managing performance, drawing up the learning journey, managing HR compliance, payroll, statutory requirements, and creating a great place to work. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Now I'll introduce to our panel come moderator for today's session, Ms. Sindhu Kalyan Sundaram, founder Ignite Academy and Serva Happiness. An organizational development coach, Ms. Sindhu helps corporates through her workshop on leadership, communication, goal setting, culture setting, and the like. With experience across UK and India, her two ventures, Ignite Academy and Serva Happiness, were conceived out of her passion to enhance effectiveness of organization and their people. She is a speaker, writer, and poetess. Her passion includes Bharatnatyam and Carnatic music. You can also follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Now, without taking much time, I will hand over to Ms. Sindhu to take over this session. Over to you, Ms. Sindhu.
Thank you, Nehali. The auditorium was quiet. There were bright lights shining from above, and we were 300 of us seated with bated breath. And all we could hear was just the adrenaline pumping with our hearts. They were just racing. It was early 2000s. And even now, when I speak about this experience, I feel goosebumps all over me. A very happy new year to all of you, and good afternoon, and welcome to the very first HRAI panel discussion for 2021. The incident I was talking about was my very first induction in my very first company, a company which was known about setting organizational culture, a country and a company where the DNA of every employee resonated with values. The company I'm talking about is GE. And it was a time when GE was going through a period of transition. But what they really ensured was the transition was smooth. The transition did not affect neither the culture nor the values. And yet, every employee walking into the organization felt a sense of belonging and pride. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to dive deep into organization culture, understand what are the facets, what are the factors, what are the different dimensions that contribute to creating an organization culture. What is it to live, breathe every single day in a climate that you belong to or you do not belong to? So my very first question to all the panelists out here is, when we talk about organization culture, the very first dimension that comes into our mind is about values. So how important are values in creating the organization culture? I would like to direct this first question to Kankana.
Okay, hi. And all of you are very happy New Year. I don't know how many of you all are viewing this program. I definitely would like to thank for HRAI for bringing me into this panel. I think the importance of value, a subject very close to my heart. I think the value systems of any organization is the foundation of the culture in which the organization moves ahead, or in which the culture of the organization rests upon. The value system, even in our personal life, what culture you come in, your value system plays the most integral role in shaping you as an individual. Just as your value system plays the most integral role in shaping yourself as an individual, similarly, the values of an organization is the predominant factor which shapes the culture of the organization. And therefore, it becomes very critical for every organization to set up the value systems which aligns with the, I would say, the vision of the company, the goal of the company, and of course, what we are trying to achieve in the short term, in the midterm, and in the long term. However, the fact remains while your business goals may keep changing, but the foundation of the organization, which is the value system, and from which the offshoots of a culture comes up, becomes the most important part of any organization that you choose. In fact, the value system or the values of an organization is so important that even when you make a personal choice of joining an organization, the value system on which the organization rests upon is some of the determining factors for people after a particular point of time in your career to decide or make a decision whether to choose the company or not to choose the company. There has to be a great alignment with the value system of the company along with your own personal value systems. So I think value, whether it is company, whether it is personal, plays the most important part in shaping the organization, in shaping our personality, in shaping the entire environment. So for me, value system comes first and then comes the rest. So that's the importance I would place on the value system or the value.
Wonderful, Kankana. Thank you for setting the tone and actually letting us know your belief about values being the pillar on which the entire organization rests. I would like to ask the same question to Vijay.
So basically, good afternoon to all of you, and wish you a very happy new year. I hope this year be very different than the last year, and we go back to the normal norms of working back from office. Because to me, that's where the culture eliminates. A lot of time we talk about culture, but do we really understand what is culture? If we ask somebody what is the culture of the company, people may not be able to answer. They would talk about their experiences. So to me, culture is all about what various employees experience in the organization, and the experiences of every individual vary. There could be a manager doing things in a particular way. There could be a B manager doing things in a very different way. So the experiences of the employees under the A manager and the B manager are going to be completely different. How do we make sure that these differences are still valid while we have certain values which are inculcated across the organization? That's the key to me, to be able to really give a holistic experience to the people. So to me, values are the guiding principles for the people to do certain things. A lot of times we hear, especially from HR, we would all talk big things. Oh, our values are this, our values are that. This is what we believe in. When you go on ground and ask people how many of them really remember the values, I'm sure not more than 5% will be able to tell you these are our values. That is, and we may not accept, but reality or fact is that we go and ask employees what are our values, we'll know the reality. So to me, values is something which people should believe in. It should be simple to understand. Most of the times it is very complex sentences of or paragraphs sometimes, which people are not going to really remember. I remember we doing this exercise in one of my organizations, and we talked about things being very simple. We said one of the key elements to our culture is going to be how we help people live their dreams, how we help employees live their dreams. So it was extremely simple thing to be understood by everyone, that how will we make sure that people live their dreams, and that was very clear for everyone. So to me, values are important as long as they're understood and they're really drill down to the last people. It should be simple, it should be understandable, and people should really look up to those. They should really be something which guides people. So that to me is value and culture.
Thank you, Vijay. I think you basically brought out the fact that values are the beacon of light, and it's important that everybody has that conviction. The organization itself has that conviction for everyone to remember, distill, and demonstrate these values. Thank you very much. The same question to Vinay as well.
If only we would pay more attention to moral science classes when we were in school, we wouldn't have to have value sessions in an organizational setup. In my mind, I'll make it very simple. I think we're used to making it very complex. We are dealing with human beings at home, we are dealing with human beings at work, right? Nothing changes. So the way you would behave at home, which is being genuine, being nice, being helpful, being supportive, being caring, trying to look out for each other, the same needs to extend at workplace. I don't see any reason why we need to have this whole differentiation of value systems which are personal and professional. The fact that we are differentiating, right, creates that rift in the mind where people think that it's okay to do something which is not right because it's professional, and it's okay to do something which is right because it's personal, right? So I think just take it easy, look at it as a human being perspective. You're dealing with another human being, you have common sense, you can do what is best in terms of delivering as far as value is concerned. We will talk about organizations and how organizations create these value systems as we move along. But my belief is that just go back to your moral science classes. You don't need any other lectures.
Oh, very simplistically, but beautifully brought out, Vinay, talking about value synchronicity. Very, very well said. Thank you. So, when we talk about values, naturally the discussion moves on to organization culture. But here we would just like to bring in a very different thought. So, it's in terms of the pandemic where we've been through, there've been a lot of organizations which have gone through realignment, a lot of organizations we've gone through restructuring process. So Kankana, I would like to ask you, what is the role of leaders in this entire organizational restructuring process, and what kind of impact will this restructuring have on hierarchies and matrices? You're on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute. So I think your question, which talks about particularly, I mean, let's not take pandemic as, unfortunately, we are still in the pandemic, but otherwise also, I think the restructuring or redesigning of an organization becomes very imperative in the kind of VUCA world that we are living in. Everything is so fragile, everything is so dynamic, and everything keeps changing. It becomes extremely important, particularly for the leaders, to have an eye and keep a follow-up on the business model that you're chasing. I mean, I'm speaking from an HR perspective because I've come to this forum as an HR leader. And what is the role of an HR leader as much as any other leader in reorganizing the structure of an organization, which has to be completely in alignment with the business goals or the business priorities that you're chasing. For example, I will tell you my experience, which probably would help to understand where I'm coming from. So I had joined this organization in February 2019, and we are a medtech company primarily into providing all kind of supplies that you require in an operation theater, which are consumable in nature and which are not large equipments. So basically a medical device company where our whole focus is to focus our attention on all the hospitals where surgeries of any kind are happening. When we joined the company, we had for example, the sales structure is extremely important in the organization from a perspective of getting your top line. So also the importance is your manufacturing and your production to ensure that there is supply for the demand that is being generated and which aligns with the business focus. So when I joined in, the sales structure of the organization was primarily made in terms of the product that we are selling. So there are certain products which are into, say, sutures or surgical needles, and there's something called consumables, which is more from a gloves perspective, or any other thing, or a swab that you require in an operation theater. Then there is one aspect of business which completely deals with your government authorities, which is your large accounts and public accounts. So, and then there is another business which deals with a product which is primarily into your implants of, any kind of orthopedic requirements. Now, when we came in and we set up a business vision for the next 2 to 3 years, we realized that the current sales structure which we have would not be conducive, and we firmly believe would enable us to achieve the objective that we were chasing, be it a large number, be it a huge top line, be it the market focus, be it the kind of intensity that we need to get into any tier A, B, C kind of cities. And therefore, we felt that the whole organized sales structure, which is one of the biggest chunk of people we have, needs to be completely relooked into from the perspective of achieving a business. And therefore, we decided that instead of being product specific, instead of being location specific, let's look into, because our business lies only with hospitals. So we have segregated the entire landscape of hospitals. So we decided a hospital which has a 0 to 100, sorry, a 10 to say 100 beds, 100 and above to 200, and then comes the 200 and above, and then comes your corporate hospitals. So the whole sales structure, which further got divided with your territories, which further got divided with a strategy of focusing and the time required to spend on each customer, the entire landscape was dissected, keeping in view the outside outcome of what we were chasing. And that's when we redesigned the entire sales structure, brought in a total change in the org structure of the company, both in production, supply chain, to ensure that everything gets aligned to the objective that we are chasing. So I felt it was important to give this example, which will allow us to relate why it is so important and how if we do a redesigning of the org structure to ensure that we align with the business objective. And therefore, as leaders, every leader has to think accordingly that to achieve this business outcome, how do we drive the structure? We cannot think of a structure today which is like before, traditional structure, which you do now and you don't change it for 10 years. No, today we have launched the new structure. We in fact launched the new structure just when the pandemic started. In fact, we took the advantage of introducing the new structure because we got 2 months in time to orient the sales force to the new structure and thereby move forward. We never know, after 1 year, that may not be the right structure and we may have to relook at it. But the business drives the restructure or the reorganization in a particular company. That's my experience and answer that I would like to share with everyone.
I think the example that you shared was quite relatable because it brings to fore the basic essence of organizational restructuring, which is alignment to business objectives, vision, and most importantly, values. Because when we started the conversation with values, we spoke about synchronicity and them being beacon light, which means every activity that an organization encounters has to be in alignment with them. And I think that example was fantastic. Thank you very much. So when we talk about alignment, as you said, one of the classic examples, literally a case study, is that of the Tatas, especially. I'm sure all of us have read about it. When 26/11 happened, we all read about how each and every employee in the hotel assumed ownership, assumed that sense of belonging, and were at the forefront protecting the guests, right? There was no second thought. It was as if It was just an impulse, a reaction that just triggered, and everybody was there at the forefront. That speaks about organization culture. That speaks about the depth to which these values have got distilled into each and every employee. And picking out from that example, Vijay, my question for you is, how is this sort of organizational climate slash culture created and nurtured in organizations?
So, great question, Sindhu. I think it's extremely important for us to understand how we really do change the fabric of the organization, because there are a set of people who have their own set of values coming together. Though we keep on saying the values should be aligned, it doesn't really happen that easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share an example of one of the organizations I joined, and I joined this organization, and then this was one of the 7 different sites they had worldwide. And whenever I used to talk to somebody globally, they used to smile and chuckle whenever I used to say I joined Ahmedabad site. And so I didn't really understand what was really happening when I came back. And then I realized that, people have written off this site saying, oh, these are not the people who can really do something great for the organization. 1 year down the line, the CEO had come, and when she went back, she'd written, this was the most transformed site I've ever seen in my career. What we did was phenomenally different. Probably a lot of HR folk may not really agree with what we tried to do, but it was phenomenal. So I'll give you some glimpses of where we started. So we had one of the values as honesty. However, there was a rule saying if you come 3 times late, you will be half day will be deducted. And I was like amazed. I said, how can you do that? But anyways, there was a caveat to it. If the manager says that it's okay, then the half day is not done. So people would say, oh, my electricity went off. Gujarat, hardly it goes off. It never goes off actually. But the manager will also say yes. And then we've reinforced a value of saying lies, whereas we have honesty as our value, and nobody ever thought about it. So that was the first thing we started questioning people, saying, guys, if honesty is a value and if this is the process, how is this going to go hand in hand? So we started taking out some of those processes, to the extent I really started going a little bit more into details. And we said, oh, we talk of teamwork, and we always say that teamwork starts at the top. But when the business goals are set, it is HR's attrition should be this, HR's cost should be this much training should be done. Finance will have their own parameters, the sales has revenue and profit. But these are functional goals, not the team's goals. So that was the first thing we started changing, saying, how do we make this team work together as a team? So over a period of time, we were able to convince this team of 12 different individuals who were reporting to 10 different people in 11 or 9 different countries to come together and work as a team. People started taking projects of significance to the organization, irrespective of whether it was HR or finance or operations. That is a team which came together, and we used agile methodology. The projects were put into smaller chunks. They were displayed in the canteen. The scrum meeting of the management used to happen in the cafeteria, where people could come and find out what their leaders have done for the day. Over a period of time, we started talking about freedom with responsibility. We said, how would we keep on giving freedom to our people? So the first thing was we removed this rule, saying you come late, it's okay. You go and tell truth to your manager, he or she would not say you anything. So the managers were like, oh, you were taking out control from our hands. I said, you try this out, how does this work? So we started talking about freedom with responsibility, and we reached to a stage where we said, why do you need managers? So we had a team which didn't have a manager. We keep on hearing this across the HR fraternity, and a lot of people, the sentence from Gallup, people leave the managers, they don't leave the organization. So we said, okay, we will change the whole thing. Over a period of time, we would want the managers to be not managers but coaches, because people are mature to know what is to be done. Nobody needs to micromanage them, tell them don't do this and do this. It's not required. It is our need to have a structure, to have a manager who tells people what is to be done. But we took that off, and it was working wonderfully well. They were working directly with their customers, internal customers, and it worked wonderfully well. So the second thing I was talking about is the managers. So we allowed people to choose their managers every 6 months. I don't think any company in the world allows to do that. However, of course, there were a lot of challenges which came. Managers said, "Oh, if I get more people, then what? If I don't get people, then what?" We'll give you feedback. We'll give you continuous feedback. We will coach you. We'll train you. We'll give you new batches. If you still don't get after 3 or 4 trials, then we'll have a separate conversation, because then it's not really aligning to what we're trying to do. But that is how we talked about things. We all across the world, we keep on talking, oh, bell curve is bad, we should not have bell curve, but we still have in some or the other forms the bell curves. We'll say, oh, the first top 5 performers will get this much. So one side, we go and do a team building program, we talk of synergies. Second side, we say, okay, that doesn't matter. You have to be the top 3 performers to get a 5% more increment than others. And obviously, we don't talk about motivation. For us, most of the times, motivation is money. We will, of course, talk of job satisfaction. But if somebody else, to the youngsters, give a 10% or 5,000 rupees more, they will go and join that organization. So we said, how do we really make sure that we walk the talk? So one of the things we did in that organization was remove the KPIs. Removed the KRAs. We said these are the goals for the site, and the site achieves, everybody gets the same. We talk of families, right? But in the family, if somebody does not work, or if he or she earns less, we don't tell them that we'll give you 1 chapati less because you earn less. But we do that in the organization, and then we call family. So we said, no, everybody will get same increment across the board, right from the site director to me to everybody else. And it worked wonderfully well. We had questions saying, how will the high performers be motivated? We inculcated a program where we said, what do you want to do in your life? We talk of passion, and we have intrinsically motivated, passionate people. So we did a program called as Vision on Canvas, where people could find out what their dreams in life were, and then what better than we helping them to achieve those dreams. So that is the kind of values, transformation, culture, which I tried to do in my last organization. Obviously, it doesn't come with one person. The whole management team had to believe in it. And it was simple, as I said in the beginning. One of the things was, how do we make people's lives better? How do I help people live their dreams? That was the main aim, and that's how it all got translated. So to me, that is how you design cultures of the organization. Decide what you want to do, the purpose. Once you have the purpose, then you can go into depth and find out what you really need. And to me, if you have passionate people, your organization is secured for next 100 years at least.
Wonderful, Vijay. I'm so glad we had this question, because what you basically said right now brings a very humane perspective to HR. You're basically talking about how the entire HR fraternity need not only be stuck up between theory, textbooks, and models, but they can be customized. They can actually embrace a very human perspective. It's okay to break the rules, or it's okay to create and redefine your own rules, which is only going to create and add more value to people around. I think that was a brilliant example. So thank you so much. And you use terms like freedom with responsibility. I think these are things which drive ownership. Instead of forcing ownership onto someone, you give them the freedom, but they know that they are responsible for it. I think ownership then becomes intrinsic to people. They then start becoming intrinsically motivated and driven, and a sense of belonging develops, right? Like you said, in a family, when a person doesn't earn more, you don't give that person 1 chapati less. So when an organization starts embracing these kind of values, employees start having that sense of belonging, and they start saying, this is my company, this is my team, I belong here, and therefore I will do everything to enrich myself and the organization. Very well put, thank you so much. So on that note, continuing on that note, so to Vinay, a few years back, let's say again a decade back, the concept of success for an individual was probably defined as saying, okay, I'm earning a six-figure salary, or I've gone abroad. That was success, very tangible. But today, the entire concept of success or the entire concept of culture has changed. Today, we have more intangible terms such as, am I respected? Am I trusted in the organization? Am I valued? And if the answer is yes, maybe I am a successful individual. So, Vinay, my question for you is, what are your thoughts on what are the recent scientific findings on the indices that define organization culture? Anything that you've come across?
I think you know there has been a huge change in the workforce that has come in, with millennials and Gen Z coming in. A lot of perspective of how workplaces have to be is also undergoing a change as we speak, and has gone through a tremendous change over the last decade. What is more important today for the workforce is, am I aligning to the purpose of my life? Earlier, we would look at an alignment with the organization's purpose and what the organization is doing. Today, individuals want to look at how their sense of purpose and belonging is aligned with what organization's sense of purpose and belonging is, right? That's a huge change culturally, and there are a lot of studies that talks about how purpose is becoming the core, even from a candidate perspective. Earlier, purpose used to be the core only from an organization perspective. So that's the first change that has happened, and that will continue to evolve. The second thing that has happened with, again, a younger workforce, and literally we are seeing two or three generations, actually four in some cases. Gen Z also started working now. So there are four generations that are actually working currently in a workplace. So what is that doing culturally or from an organization perspective? And then there are a lot of studies around it as well. Is it's bringing in a lot of room for spontaneity with the VUCA world, which we all know that we are living in. Uh, we were just not being as spontaneous as we should have been to respond to situations. Now we are becoming more. So we would talk agile, we would talk VUCA, but we would really be very scared to thread that line when it comes to actually doing it. So there are these things that are coming up in workplace cultures. So spontaneity is going to be here. And culturally, people will have to start living with how spontaneous things work. So these are two very critical aspects that are changing as far as dynamics from a employee or a candidate culture nuances perspective we can talk about.
So, Vinay, do you also end up measuring these, or how do you understand that, yes, the people or the organization is agile or spontaneous? Or do you do it as a case by
Let,
case
um,
scenario?
let me try and share an image that will show. Um, 1 second. I'm just sort of sharing this. Can you see the image on your?
Yes.
Yeah. So largely organizations culture, right? uh, Revolves around these three or four boxes. And every organization also, and Tushar, in fact, just asked a question saying, when do we realize when we have to change our culture, or when do we have to really reinvent the wheel, etc. So uh, I'll just give you like a quick 30-second overview of each one of them. Clan is usually a culture that behaves like a family, that behaves more like, which is mentoring, let's do things together, let's grow together, that kind of environment. Adhocracy is more of high on risk taking. They're really the ones who want to do things first. They are the ones who want to really quickly move things in a perspective. Market oriented cultures are they focus on competition. What's competition bringing out? How do we have to deal with competition? How do we get our products, etc., etc. And hierarchical are sort of, transitional cultures where people follow a certain hierarchy. There is a fixed protocol, etc., etc. Now, what is happening is earlier we could identify organizations with each of these cultures. Like startups would be high on adhocracy, banking, for example, or manufacturing will be high on hierarchy, because if there's no process orientation, imagine you give freedom and flexibility to a banker. He will say, okay, I will give a loan at 1% to somebody, I'll give a loan at 12% to somebody. You cannot have that. So you have hierarchy in that sense, right? A lot of your governmental NGOs or NGOs would work in a clan format because they want to do things together, they share, etc., etc. What is changing is now organizations will have all four within their different departments, because there'll be different things that they're doing, and they'll have to start getting used to it. So there'll be an innovation lab within an organization that'll be high on adhocracy. There'll be a very, very core business thing which will be high on hierarchy. There's going to be that sales which is going to be market driven. So now this is the biggest change that will happen, where if you see this box, all organizations will have to adopt to having all four together. Let me just stop sharing my screen. And people will start measuring these depending on how each department, each function, or each part of the organization has to grow. In fact, like for example, sense of purpose. HR interviews have changed so much. We would ask candidates earlier saying that this is the organization's ethos and this is who we are. Do you think you want to join us? Now the question that HR asks is, what is your purpose in life? What is your motto? What aligns to your core, right? It's just changed. So we start measuring right at interview stage in terms of how they're aligning when we start hiring people.
Beautiful, Vinay. I think that model very aptly summarized the integration of four different ways of working. And like you said, it's important to be spontaneous and right at the spot, understand this is how we probably need to be working in this scenario. That sort of flexibility and adaptability is very important. Thank you. So, when we go to organizations and we measure employee happiness, we measure employee engagement, there are companies that ask us, Sindhu, can you measure parameter A, B, C? So every organization has its own parameters. So some organizations tell us, Sindhu, can you tell me how employees feel about leadership? And some organizations say, Sindhu, can you tell me how engaged employees are? So the requirements from organizations change depending on the domain, the culture, and even the HR person who is actually sitting and asking me, what can we measure? But from a very holistic perspective, Kankana, I would like to ask you, can you tell us, in your opinion, what are the top 3 traits that constitute to a strong organizational culture?
I think it has to be a little bit relative to some of the questions you have put forward to Vinay, but with the kind of the kind of mix of people that you have in an organization. And I think whether the traits of a constructive culture, I mean, every company would aim to provide a culture which is conducive to the people who work there, because ultimately it's the people who's going to make it or break it. Having said so, I mean, when I say a constructive culture, I guess we also, culture anyway, we all know it helps us in achieving our business objectives. It is what which keeps the manpower in the organization, that feeling of belongingness, the feeling a part of the organization. All this comes with the culture that you create in the organization. Now, what we have seen, and again, interestingly, Vijay had also said that constructive culture, we write our value system of honesty and integrity. We expect people, particularly the HR team, is sitting here and policing what time you're coming in, what time you're going out. I mean, these are not constructive culture, in particularly in today's world, where technology is so enabled, when people are so well read, people are so well aware. If you do not provide a constructive culture where there is an element of trust, where there is an element of belief that my employee would do everything in the interest of the organization. So the concept of value system is on one hand, But at the same time, the culture of ensuring that we have trust on our employees, we keep saying mutual trust, mutual respect. First, that trust has to come from the organization. That is what a constructive culture would require. And as a foundation, is a trust as a culture of trust. Today, in this new world, particularly in the Gen Z, and I look into for while I was in the IT company, where you deal with people who are baby boomers, who are in their 55 pluses, to people who have just come out straight out of a college. And to handle that volatile, different categories of employees, the culture has to be equally vulnerable and adaptable to the kind of expectations that different breed of generations may have. And therefore, for an organization to be adaptable and vulnerable and agile to the cultures which will motivate the employees to contribute at various different level becomes one of the important and constructive environment that you can provide in an organization. For example, I will take an example of tallies. We do not have, for example, there is no limit to leave. The question is, today there's no concept of leave there. So they believe and we believe that you take leave as much as you want. Why will an employee will take leave unless he require? I know for the new generation, it's very important to go on vacation, to go and see new places, to go and contribute to the society, so be it. But I think they are equally aware of the fact that there are deliverables measured which they have to deliver. And therefore, even if you keep the leave, it's so liberal in today's world that you take as much as you want. And we have seen over the last 4 5 years, which I'm sure my successor is also viewing, that people have not taken more than 20 to 25 days of leave, in spite of giving a few, in spite of keeping it open. So that is the culture which, according to me, brings in a lot of constructive thought process, which allows employees to bring in the thought process of belongingness. The third thing, which is again comes on the foundation of trust and also what we call it honesty and integrity. It's imbibed in them that the company has reposed so much trust on me. I need to give it back to the company. The company does not keep policing me how much petrol bills are being placed for reimbursement. In fact, I have to tell one very important practice or very uh, unheard practice, where any employee in Tally, you are entitled to petrol reimbursement for the amount you spend to come and go to office, and no questions asked. But what we ask, that if any of this bill is found to be fake, which can be even 5 rupees, you lose your job in 5 seconds. To me, that's constructive culture. That's a culture of absolute trust, and employees start imbibing on them, which becomes the DNA of the organization. The second constructive culture is we should not restrict people from giving their opinions, people from giving the feedback, and therefore becomes very imperative and important for all HR folks to encourage constructive feedback. It could be any kind of out of box thinking. The thought process of ensuring that we provide a platform for people to think differently, which basically brings in the culture of risk taking, we will go a long way, is one of the constructive environment which needs to be encouraged, which needs to be, imbibed in the organization. The third thing which I feel extremely important in an organization, other than trust, other than thinking differently, encouraging out of the box thinking, is the ability to take risk and therefore allow people to work in their own way, where they know the outcome they are chasing without keeping a complete control of what they are doing, and therefore encourage the thought process of strategic thinking in every aspect that you do in the organization. Now, strategy does not mean you are talking about business strategy. In any activity, even in your personal life, there needs to be a strategy. And that strategic thinking is something which will be encouraged in any kind of constructive organization who believes in nurturing and bringing the best out of people. And the concept of strategic thinking need not be complicated. It's simple thing like I have 5 tasks to do, say from home, and I have 2 hours. Which task should I do first? Or supposing I'll just give a simple example that I have to meet someone today, I have to deliver something, I have to pick up something from somewhere. How do I strategically think in terms of the distance, time, and finally needs to be completed in 2 hours? That itself is a simple strategy. And therefore, a constructive organization needs to nurture every employee to think in that direction. According to me, these 3 things plays a very important role in defining a constructive and a conducive environment in an organization. That's my opinion.
Fantastic, Kangana. The way you said it brings out one key point that organizations drive values by not stating that these are values. They walk the talk. Typical example was of integrity. Instead of telling people that integrity is our key value, you're giving them the opportunity to demonstrate integrity. Like you said, submit your petrol bills, but if we find that they are fake, you lose your job. So you're giving them the opportunity to experience what integrity is, without actually teaching them and telling them you have to follow. I think that's beautiful. That is walking the talk. Many times when we have conversations with friends and fellow workers, we understand that people leave organizations because number one, either their sense of purpose is not fulfilled, or number two, probably there's a lack of alignment between the organization and themselves, or number three, there's no trust, or number four, they just don't feel that sense of belonging to the organization. And somewhere down the line, it's the people who make or break the organization, and that's why we call them the human capital, isn't it? So question to Vijay. I remember reading Simon Sinek when he quoted one of the Zen Buddhist sayings, where he says, how you do anything is defines how you do everything. Okay, so how you do anything defines how you do everything. So what is the competitive advantage that a strong organizational culture will give to the organization?
So, Sindhu, over a period of time, what we've realized is, initial phases, if you see, of the industrial revolution, we would see technology being the key. And then over a period of time, the technology was transferred to people. Now, technology is not the key. Yes, you have a technology to build a product, but once you build a product, it is not very easy for somebody else to copy the product. They can very easily build that product or buy that technology. So technology is no more your advantage. Your advantage is somebody who can really keep on building that technology. So people really are key to be over a period of time. They are the ones who are going to keep on making difference. And a lot of times we keep on talking about it. The question is, how do we really build that people from the old terminology in HR, which is the KSA, which is the knowledge, skills, and attitude, to be able to really be the key for the success of the organization in the future. So how do we really make sure that we have those people who believe in the dream of your organization? How do we make sure those people are then passionate about achieving your organizations and their goals, which over a period of time, at some point in time, have to culminate together? If we have that kind of people, if we are able to leverage their skills and their passion, to me, that is when we would have really made an organization which can very easily adapt to the changing technology, which can very easily adapt to market, which can be way beyond what the competition can think. A lot of times we've seen, are you market oriented? Are you market disruptive? Why is that question not being asked? Can you really bring up something to the market which can transform things? We keep on talking about design thinking. We keep on talking about a lot of innovative things. But when it comes to really delivering why is that not getting translated? So to me, if we have an organization whose culture is really to nurture people, to build that passion, and then have disruptive market practices coming up, you will be way ahead of the competition. You'll be way ahead of the competition if you listen to your people. A lot of times we talk saying we would listen to our people, but we don't really listen. We hear to them and we don't do anything about it. We will have suggestion box, we will have all kinds of things, but we don't really do anything. The day we start doing things which our employees really say, not everything is valid, but we validate those things and we will be way ahead of what others do. When we stop comparing ourselves with others, that's what is going to give us a huge competitive advantage. A lot of times we say, oh, this company is doing that. So if we talk of culture, the first name people would always come out with be Google, right? And I don't know how many of you have been tracking Google, but there is a union formed in Google in California. And this is the first time a union has been formed because the employees believed the organization is not treating them fairly. So to me, if we really are able to listen to people and do all these things, it really changes, transforms things. So one of the things again being talked about is psychological safety. Can I go and talk to my manager, my heart out, without having the fear of getting reprimanded for it? So to me, this is what is going to really make, if we are able to really do that, then people would be heard, listened, and then the whole transformation. To me, this is what will give an organization a competitive edge. To sum up, because I talked so too many things. So one, really having passionate people, bringing their passion out, talking about disruption and not just saying that, okay, we will do what the market does, talking something different, having people talk their heart out and listening and having that translated as a part of their strategy, as a part of the organization's culture, and doing those things. I think the 3 or 4 things which I would sum up would really give organization an amazing competitive edge.
When you talked about listening, that really stood out. And I also see a few people responding and acknowledging the listening factor that you spoke about. I remember speaking to one of the employees and asking them, how do you feel about your job? And the person was telling me, yeah, I keep doing Excel sheets day in and day out. Okay, why do you do Excel sheets? Was my next question. Well, my manager asked me to do so. Well, yes, your manager asked you to do so, but you creating an Excel sheet, how is that going to impact the organization? The employee was clueless. And it actually talks about the kind of culture. The employee sitting there is not aware of his or her contribution to the ultimate vision or the goal or the objective of the organization. And that is where I think listening comes in. If only managers and leaders can pause in their tracks and stop and listen to the said and the unsaid words as well. Why is this employee silent, or why is he off track today? These kind of give cues to what kind of culture we are setting in our team. So thank you very much, Vijay. So this is a very famous saying by Brian Tracy, which goes that the true test of leadership emerges during crisis. And I'm not quoting it verbatim, but that's the meaning of the phrase. So Vinay, my question to you is, how has your organization responded, and has it managed to retain its culture, or has it evolved over the past 9 months during the pandemic?
You know, we didn't have to do anything differently during the pandemic to deal with the situation. And I say this with a lot of pride because there were a lot of things we were doing that were right, which helped us cope up with the online version of the same thing that happened as well. We've not had attrition in this period. People have continued to work remotely. We meet them occasionally at meetings, etc. But there were 2 or 3 things that we experimented while we were in the pre, corona uh, stage, and that continues to work. A lot of people have been regulars at attending a lot of my webinars, etc. So at a cost of repetition, Vijay kept talking about passion, and I think that is the core to how organizations actually stay together. If you're passionate about something, this is like, to everybody, remember the times when you had to organize, say, a wedding in the family or friends, or a fest in college. Nobody told you to stay up till 2 o'clock and do certain things. You did it yourself because you wanted to make sure that the event was a success, right? Now, imagine if you're bringing in that zeal in a normal workplace where you don't have to tell them, people do it because they are passionate about what they want to do. Really shapes how organizations work, right? Listening to, again, another important point that Vijay was making, right? We have started something called as weekly gossip meetings. We actually discuss non-business essentials once a week, and of course that we've sort of tweaked a little bit during the pandemic. But essentially, I would go to a meeting where I will tell them how pathetic the traffic was, and how somebody was running over me, and how I was late, or how somebody's cat died. I mean, just gossip and not discuss anything but non-business things is what we would discuss. How that helped is, suddenly, a lot of frustration doesn't stem out of your work. It stems out of a lot of other factors around you. Say, for example, you've had a bad day in the morning with the maid not coming in the house, and you've gone in with a bad mood, and somebody asks you for a report. You'll be like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do all day. I'm just going to keep doing Excel sheets and reports. So the reaction is not really to the work, but reaction is because of something else. These gossip meetings, sort of started allowing people to release their steam. It also started, it also actually gave people an opportunity to, just talk about what's happening in the grapevine and pull each other's legs. And believe you me, while it sounds very risky, it worked wonders. It worked wonders because people generally knew what is happening around without having to have that communication channel. I made that unofficial communication channel official by gossiping officially, right? So that's one thing that really helps. Two other things that we did right in the pre-pandemic. We are a startup. We're an Indian startup, so we are a small organization. We are all the time trying to prove ourselves. We are struggling to tell people who we are and how we are trying to disrupt the market, etc., etc. It's like a tough job. I mean, when I have to represent a startup versus when I used to be in a large brand, I mean, I know the difference, where people would just hang up on me if I call them up saying that I'm calling from this HR team, etc., etc. We just did, and I've done that in one of our engagement sessions as well with the HRAI. We started singing the national anthem once a week. Suddenly there was an adrenaline rush, saying that, oh, I'm representing Made in India, I'm representing an Indian startup. All I did was sing the national anthem for 52 seconds. The adrenaline rush actually evoked a lot of passion among people of representing the brand that they were representing. And suddenly people will start talking of the brand very proudly, saying that, oh, this is what we do. Right? Kurta is a part of our official attires. We wear Indian formals to work once a week. We just don't wear it during celebrations or festivals or any of those special occasions. We believe that this is what we represent. Imagine you're talking to an African client wearing a orange kurta, and somebody like, oh, that's a bright dress you're wearing, and you say, no, this is what we do as an organization. The minute they are subconsciously talking of what they're doing differently in the organization, they're passionately pitching to the client or customer about who they are. So subtle changes, very simple changes, evoke huge responses to the way people respond to situations. And that's what has helped us even during the pandemic stage in sort of surviving. That's where we are.
I'm really smiling listening to the weekly gossip sessions and you singing the national anthem. That's fantastic. And you're basically trying to evoke, as we say, the happiness hormones, right? Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. And when someone sings the national anthem, there's a lot of dopamine that gets released. And when you talk about your weekly gossip sessions, it's about, I'm telling someone's listening to me, someone's understanding, and that's serotonin, right? It's secreting, enabling the secretion of serotonin, which brings that togetherness, the feeling of I am with a group that is going to listen to me. I'm with a family that encourages me and that listens and just doesn't judge me at all. I can just talk about my maid being late and I can be grumpy and nobody will judge me. Fantastic, Vinay. I think it's a great learning for a lot of people in the HR fraternity. Again, another example of how we don't have to stick to models or prescribed games or activities or training sessions to evoke productivity. I think it's been a fantastic discussion, a very fruitful discussion of various thoughts. So if I had to summarize, we spoke about values. We spoke about values being the pillar, the spinal cord of any organization. We spoke about value synchronicity. How important is it for people and the organizations to be completely aligned? Because ultimately, the vision of any organization is every employee being aligned to its vision and mission, and there's a sort of oneness that goes in. And a lot of, I would say, disruptive thoughts, be it Vijay talking about his experiences of transforming an organization, Kankana talking about restructuring the entire sales team, or Vinay talking about the gossip sessions. That's going to stay in my mind for a long time, and singing the national anthem. And then we spoke about listening, empathy, passion, vulnerability, being spontaneous. Thank you so much for such a fantastic session. And thank you, audience, for also putting forth those questions. It's been great, and it's been a fantastic start for the new year and us getting settled into the new normal. I believe we had quite a lot of inputs from the panelists to take back home. So I would like to conclude one of my favorite quotes by Helen Keller when she said, "The most beautiful things in life are those that cannot be seen or touched. They can only be felt with the human heart." And being in the fraternity of HR, I think our primary business is to spread that feeling of sense of belongingness to everybody in the organization. So thank you very much. Thank you, Vijay, Kankana, Vinay. Thank you, Nehali and HRAI. A happy new year to all of you once again. Over to you, Nehali.
Thank you so much, Sindhu, for moderating this session so beautifully and taking maximum questions. Before we conclude this session, I would request all the participants to please participate in the poll, and please provide your valuable feedback. We could cover your questions throughout this session, but however, if your questions are still not answered, if we have not able to take any of your questions, we will coordinate with the panel members and we will get back to you through WhatsApp or email. So once again, thank you so much, Sindhu, and all the dear panel members for your insights and giving your valuable feedback. And to all those who wish to share and learn, you can also access all the slides and recording of our today's session from our YouTube channel, and link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Before we conclude with today's session, we would also want to thank all the associations, Geisha, NASCOM COE, GlipTalk, Telgro, LinkedIn Local, and LinkedIn Local India and Ahmedabad for supporting HRAI and its event. To know more about this association, I would request all to kindly visit the links provided in the chat window. Do join us for our next Connecting the Dots series on the topic Adaptability, Change, Ingredients of Leadership on the 13th of Jan 2021 at 4 p.m. IST. Request you all to kindly register for this event. Link for the same has been mentioned in the chat window. Thank you so much, everyone, once again for joining this webinar. Stay safe, take care, and bye for now. See you soon on our next webinar. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.